This is a weekly roundup presented by the Conversation Project. I'm Jake from Payne. I have 12 stories for you that we presented all week long in our daily show called Things You Might Not Have Heard. And these are based on your engagement daily. These are 12 stories from the week that you may have forgotten about that have the biggest impact and biggest kind of grab on me to bring it back in this recap edition. It's from the week from Friday, October the 12th to Friday, October 19th. All the stories we're talking about, as I said, and things you might have heard the podcast. And we'll explain how all that stuff works and how you can be a part of both this show and the wrap up, and of course, the daily show. Get the headlines every single day. Remind you right now that our website, this is the conversationproject.com, our main home for all the things about the Conversation Project there as well. Email us as you will at the conversation inbox at gmail.com. We'll explain the feeds, how you can find us and get the stories into these actual programs. And remind you that our sponsor for this program is Ground News, where you get a chance to get the real news and the real aspects from all aspects. More on that in a bit. This is the weekly roundup, should say, for the week ending October 19th, 2024. And we are going to give to you these stories coming up in no particular order by day or by actual ranking. These are just some of the stories that made the most sense in recapping for this show. And you can agree or disagree in the comments or in your comments via the video comments or via email comments going through. Story number one. Headline number one for this week of the 12 stories. The headline reads, One Direction singer Liam Payne dies in Argentina after fall from balcony. Of course, all these stories have a chance to grow and to develop and go deeper into detail. But the original story posted was Liam Payne, one of the former members of One Direction, at one point in time, the largest boy band at the time and maybe ever, and that's, of course, can be argued, died at the age of 31 this week after falling from a third floor balcony in Buenos Aires, Argentina, from his hotel room. As the story progressed, we have found that one, we heard the 911 call, and the people at the hotel who were a bit in distress, as Liam Payne, was in distress, locking himself in his hotel room and essentially going mad in the room. And then him eventually falling from that balcony. We believe it was a fall from by a accident, not by anything intended. And then it sort of got bad from there. We did have pictures from TMZ and some other places that did some of the not so nice pictures before police could actually control the scene of the aftermath, his actual body on the ground, which was pretty gnarly. And from there, more stories that just sort of paint a bad picture for the final hours of Liam Payne. From there, vigils across the world, fans who remember Liam and One Direction as being one of the greatest things ever, singing gatherings, telling stories about their childhood, and of course, all four remaining members of One Direction getting a chance to speak their piece about what's going on there, including words from his daughter's mother as well. Investigation is still going forward, but it did seem like a night of fueled by intoxicants, for lack of a better word, that turned into a tragic event. We will definitely send out all the prayers, positive thoughts, and everything we can to all the fans, the family, and just folks involved in the incident for Liam Payne. Our second story this week, Boeing will lay off 10% of its employees as a strike by the factory workers continues and cripples airline production. The upgoing story, the actual story that's an update to this one, as I record this on Saturday afternoon now, a little late in recording in there, is that it looks like there's some sort of tentative agreement to get the workers back on the lines and get them back to work, off the picket lines, back on the assembly lines. But this week, Boeing announced its plan to lay off about 10% of its workforce to save up money because the big planes aren't being built. Most of the planes for the 737 MAX, 777, and 767 were not being completed, just weren't having enough done to get them done. In the meantime, the 787 was still being produced, so they were still making money there, but it happened to be that they had to get through the rest of the production, and the numbers weren't there. Plus, the striking workers are losing out on money, losing out on everything they have because of what's going on. There is no productivity going forward, so no one's making money. Boeing's trying to save money in what it can, and these strikers are doing what they can to work this out. It looks like there will be some sort of tentative agreement that we'll probably talk about going forward in our story of the days, our daily stories for things you might not have heard. And so look for an update on that one throughout the day this weekend once you get some real fact detail on this one. Let's move on to story number 3 for this morning. More on people and how people react A record number of early votes are cast in Georgia election as it gets underway in a key battleground state. Georgia is one of those states that Kamala Harris or Donald Trump has to win, or has to try to get enough numbers to do the best to win this, to basically win the election. This is one that's a toss-up for grabs. The number of votes there are important, and early voting began early last week. Georgia saw a record number, basically double the numbers of people voting on day one as it did 4 years ago, which is good. About 300,000 Georgians casting their ballots on the first day of early voting. And this isn't counting the absentee voting, which is, of course is early voting as well. But as those ballots are counted, a key note to the story, another story that we're adding into this one, former President Jimmy Carter cast his vote via absentee this week. So if Jimmy Carter does not live another week or so to get to November 5th in the election, his vote does count. An election where every vote is going to count. And my only call for this one now is whomever you're trying to back, get out there and make sure your vote is out there and done properly. If it's an early voting thing, whatever must be done there, bring your ID. If it's an absentee ballot, do whatever the rules say must be done to get it done on time. If you're going there in person, get in line early and make sure you vote and get your vote in. It's not it is important on who you vote for and what people want. And I could discuss that later. We can talk that in the comments. But remember, the important thing is this is a chance to have your voice heard. Your one vote may not be the key to carrying things around, but your one vote means you put your name in the game, some skin in the game, and you said what side you want to be on. And if things don't work out to or for you, you have a right to complain about it. People who don't vote, people don't contribute, that complain about it really aren't doing much for the process. We will see how this one plays out in Georgia, in all 50 states and territories, as we are about 18 days away from the votes starting to be counted. This is an interesting story that, despite all the weirdness that is North Korea, they have a right to exist. Their rights to exist may be a little odd by their own standards. They have a right to exist and exist in whatever vein they want to. Right now, they are extremely beefing with South Korea, who may want to have things on a up and up and may just want South Korea to go away. I'm not there with local politics because can't tell you. But right now, North Korea is being extremely, extremely aggressive, showing anger with escalation tensions with South Korea. And by doing so, they're doing this, blowing up parts of inter-Korea roads as a symbolic display of anger, because obviously these roads aren't being used. In fact, they're in so bad disrepair, they're really not good enough for anything. If there was a combined Korea, they'd have to rebuild them anyway. But many roads that are in various places that are just sort of out of the way are being destroyed to keep the grouping, keep the separation of the two nations, just in case something would happen. North Korea is essentially saber rattling in this case, but they're basically military and political disputes between the North and South are causing issues, and North Korea can't do much about this, but sort of throw a temper tantrum, and that's what's going on. There are many tensions in the regions, and they're hard to understand if you're not actually there, understand what's going on directly, because we have other issues, other points of contention in the world that North Korea and South Korea aren't really getting the same sort of level of attention that they got in the recent past. And that may be part of the problem. Maybe North Korea is being ignored. They believe they are. So they're making some noise. They're definitely making noise in these situations. Our story at the fifth spot for this week is an interesting one. So if you're watching the video, you see the picture of it right here. If you're not watching the video, go click the link for this article and you will see what we're talking about and how this can be a point of contention. If you look at it closely, you may bypass what the issue is. But if you don't look at it closely, you glance at it and you kind of go, huh? You can see why people got upset by this one. The headline for story number 5 is Bath and Body Works pulls holiday candle after KKK comparisons. It's a snowflake. There's a picture on the thing, which is the snowed in collection of candles with a snowflake, essentially a snowflake as you would fold a sheet of paper and cut little holes in it, and it'd come up unfolded and it would look like a snowflake. The problem is, as it's portrayed in the picture, if you look at it real quick, it kind of looks like a Ku Klux Klan hood because it's a pointy hood and two little eyes cut in a circle. Now, many people online have commented this one. I've looked into various different types of Facebook groups and the groups where sometimes the humor and sometimes the actual humanity gets lost. And most people are like, It actually looks like an alien. Actually looks like a guy with a big old mask on. I don't see where the thing is. Basically, if you hear the story and look at it, it should be easy to say, oh, I can see it. Some people with a little less compassion and maybe more, I don't know, malice in their hearts may want to blow this off and just say that other people are making too much attention. But if you look at the candle, you can look in and see exactly what they are looking at to and why Bath and Body Works had to apologize, pull it off the market, and wonder how no one took a look at this in the first place and thought, hey, this might be a problem. Odd transition for this one, but this is one problem that has been resolved, which will bring new problems ahead, and it is doing right now. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was killed in Gaza by Israeli forces. Now, and this was an interesting take because he is the mastermind. Mr. Sinwar is the person who essentially pulled together the plan for October the 7th for Israel, the whole big invasion that caused a lot of panic, a lot of craziness, and all the hostages, which many are still being held. He's also the person doing the main part of the hostage negotiations, which is probably why many of them aren't being released very often. But while it was believed that he was using hostages as human shields, buried under a bunker someplace or in the tunnels with them, a routine sort of walkthrough came across essentially what we're going to call a safe house, for lack of a better term. And they knew someone was in there and they went to attack it, sent a drone in to kind of see what was going on. You can see pictures of Sinwar throwing things at the drone and trying to escape. He was killed. And after he was killed, the soldier essentially looked at the person, said, this person looks familiar, did DNA tests, and found this was the actual leader of Hamas, the man who was the mastermind of everything. While he was not well secured in a bunker, he was just sort of there. No one knows why he was just sort of there at this place, whether he was transitioning between one spot to the other, whether he actually felt safe enough to kind of be in the open. But we know he's dead. We know the leader of Hamas is no longer leading Hamas, so someone is not in charge. That's usually a good thing for a while until the next guy shows up. The problem with taking out the head is that you don't know who the next guy in charge is going to be. And with Hamas being such a loose configuration of people, of groups running things, the next guy, you don't know who the next guy is. It could be worse. Maybe something good will come from this. We will see. What most people expected from this was the chance for better negotiations for hostages, because if this man was holding back hostage negotiations, he's not there anymore. Problem is, the Israelis don't seem to want to really get into deep hostage negotiations. You would think they would. I'm not Israeli, just like I can't really get into the geopolitics in Korea because I'm not there. I can't really go deep into politics other than what I am observing and hearing from observers from that point. It would seem like now would be the time to come to some sort of settling of a peace, and it's not quite happening as well. We'll still keep an eye on the region because the next guy in charge could be a worse guy in charge. Pausing between the stories. This is story 7 on the way of the 12 we have for you that were the highlights of the weekend. We'll call the highlights of the weekend. But we're going to take a time to pause and see if you can assist us in what we're trying to do in growing our conversational outreach, growing our actual reach in the people on the internet. Asking you to take some time to like, share, and subscribe to this video package if you enjoyed. Like it so that more people can see there is value in this. We still do this. There's still a lot of people who look at YouTube videos, look at things on their social media and see how many thumbs up, how many likes, how many little angry faces are there. And if you see a bunch, you'll go deeper into seeing what it is, see what the whole talk is about. If you just see something that's fresh and new, you may not want to get into it. We're asking you to see it as it's fresh and new, engage in it, and like it. Show folks that what we're providing here, what I give to you here in our commentary, in our news actual aggregation is worthy. Share it directly with people who you know will enjoy this type of entertainment, education, edutainment, if you will, who like news stories, like getting in conversational stuff, not just going off skimming the top of what's out there in the top level, because they talked about a lot of these stories on the mainstream news, but some of the smaller ones didn't get the love it probably should have gotten, and some of these need more attention that they should get. And sometimes it takes a while for a good story to turn into a good story, and we like to say we get to them first because we put them out there for you to engage in. We'll explain that in a bit. If you're not getting this directly in the subscription, subscribe to our works, whether it's the video here, whether it's some of our smaller videos other places, whether it's our newsletter where you can get the words and links directly to what's going on. Like, share, and subscribe to the work we do so more people are in the vein of stuff for more stuff to do. Back to the news and back to story number 7. This from a week with a lot of Trump Harris things to talk about. Harris did interviews where she did good or not did good. Trump did interviews where he did good or not did good. We're going to focus on one particular event that has them both together so we can get them both into one big story. The Al Smith dinner. It's a great big dinner, black or white tie affair, which has Catholics and famous people and politicians together for a big fundraiser for Catholic charities. Charities for the homeless, charities for orphans, charities or whatever. The biggest thing that raises lots of money for Catholic charities all across this wide swath. And in election years, they always invite both of the candidates, because it comes up, 2 weeks before the election, both of the major candidates to give a little speech, do a little something. And in most cases, they show up. This thing is like 100 years old. This thing is a long time going. There have been times when some candidates didn't show up for various things. This is one year where it's a little weirder, where Donald Trump did attend the dinner. And oddly enough, Melania Trump, his wife, who has not been seen with him from anything campaigning at all this year other than the convention, was there dining with Donald Trump. Kamala Harris did not show. She was in Wisconsin. She was out doing some town halls and doing some appearances, which she should be doing, trying to win the election. Donald Trump did show, which is fine. Donald Trump did a rather raw type of roasting there, which got a really blue a couple places, and many people said this wasn't as funny as it was meant to be, but it was Donald Trump doing Donald Trump. Kamala Harris did not attend, but did not come empty-handed. She gave a pre-recorded video using Molly Shannon doing her Mary Grace, her Catholic schoolgirl character from Saturday Night Live, which many said was not funny, actually poked fun at Catholics, not so much at Trump, and just was not exactly a good showing what was going on there. For many people, Donald Trump being in attendance for Catholic charities, and many people looking at Catholics saying, this is a charity for children, yet they do so many things that aren't so great for children. Kamala Harris should not have been there. For many people, saying Trump showing up and basically tearing into all the politicians that were there he didn't like, or saying Trump didn't do himself any favors. The overall consensus is this won't matter in any things. Trump's not going to win any extra voters, and Kamala Harris is not going to lose any extra voters, vice versa. This was appearance that was for show. It's normally just sort of a breaking of bread to show that both contenders can be cordial in a case. In this case, it showed they really can't be cordial at all. Our headline for story number 8. Trial date set for Sean Diddy Combs in sex trafficking case. And the trial date is May the 5th, 2025. This is the sex trafficking and racketeering case. Ironically, there are so many more specific cases of sexual assault, sexual harassment, and harassment in other cases that are popping up, mostly because Diddy is now behind bars and can't do some of the fighting he's doing against these other things going forward. There have been many, many other names read out who are throwing their hat into the rings for smaller cases for harassment. And it seems like every week there's another batch of names being read out there. But this particular one is dealing with the sex trafficking racketeering case, specifically in New York. Judge Aram Sabarian is making the announcement that Combs will be seen, or at least the whole thing will start on May the 5th. Not too far from now, May 5th, 2025, of course, getting times to get together. A draw to great media attention, which, of course, oddly enough, coincides with the other big media things at the time, including the Met Gala, scheduled for that various point in time in 2025. So at the point where many of the celebrities are in and around New York will be in and around New York anyway, we'll get a chance to see the start of this trial. Tom Brady's news this week got interesting. We're going to start with the story and go deeper into details of what this actually means. The first part is that Tom Brady's purchase of a minority stake in the Las Vegas Raiders was approved by the owners. So Tom Brady's not in charge of the Raiders, but he's got 5% of the charge. So he's now to be the blame. Whether he's going to start wearing black and silver on his face, we shall see. The biggest problem is his day job, or his weekend job, if you will. He's getting paid about $300, a whole lot of money, $300 million, I believe is what his contract is, to do commentary for Fox Sports. And that is specifically for football on Sundays. Now, if you are a football commentator, you the color guy, you're supposed to be talking about how this coach shouldn't have did this, and this player's not doing whatever, and the team is not really building itself around the players and things like that. But as an NFL owner, you're not allowed to talk about any of those things. You can't complain about other ownerships, can't complain about other teams, other players, and how things are being done. It's the rule. You're not supposed to bash your former your compadres in ownership. And meanwhile, Tom Brady is a worker whose job is to kibosh this to basically beat down on the teams. So what's been done about this? Tom Brady can't show up at any team meeting, any production meeting, any early work to get set up for a game. All he can do is get some notes, look at some stats, show up for games, talk about games, and go home. But the rest of the crew can't. So that doesn't mean that Erin Andrews can have a conversation with some other coach and that she won't talk about that to Tom Brady, so they have that to go back and forth for the game because they need that going back and forth. Tom Brady can't scout the other teams for his broadcast work because he's technically scouting teams or can technically scout teams for his ownership. He can see something in a production meeting that just seems like something random and then say it to somebody, a coach, some point in time, they can look for a player thing. It gets complicated. It's simpler than it should be, and it actually is more complicated than it ought to be. It's both. It's simple. He can do his job and do whatever. He just can't show up and get any intel while working on his work. But any intel that his production team gets beforehand, they can give to him anyway. What will this mean for the Raiders? Raiders will probably be the Raiders forever. The hype is going up for this game, for this match going up, and now it's getting a little scary, to be honest. The headline for story number 10: boxers Jake Paul and Mike Tyson square up in gritty Netflix fight night trailer. Because it's going to be on Netflix, Jake Paul, the YouTuber, now boxer, very good one should say, and legendary heavyweight boxer Mike Tyson are going to the ring finally. A date is set. A place was already set. They're going to AT&T Stadium in Arlington where the Cowboys play, and it will be streamed live on Netflix in a few weeks. This teaser, lots of visuals, lots of things, intense pieces showing the fighters preparing for an unforgettable showdown. However, some people are sort of taking that whole gritty Netflix fight night trailer and bashing it because it's a bit much. It's a bit too much, if you will. It's not the traditional shots of the guys doing whatever, which we'll get some of those, I guess, soon. But it's a way to bring up the spectacle that is Netflix doing what it's going to do. Now, Netflix, as we said earlier in the week when we talked the story, basically had a precursor, a trial of this when they did the Joey Chestnut Kobayashi hot dog eating contest, doing something streaming live and continuing there and seeing how the numbers went. Numbers were well for that one, and the production value for that was awesome, which no one had an issue with that. The biggest thing is, can the streamer hold up to the audience that will watch this thing? Looks like it will. This thing will be just as big and coming soon. Although after this happens, Netflix will get into the weekly live streaming game where they start becoming the home of Monday Night Raw. Maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. That's a whole nother discussion going forward. The biggest thing for this right now is what people are looking for. I, myself, and people of my generation and just older guys, if you will, want to see Mike Tyson beat the hell out of Jake Paul. But if you're looking at how the numbers are going, the actual analysts, people who watch boxing and actually care about, the actual fighters themselves and their skills, not just for nostalgia, are saying Jake Paul's got this thing going away. There's no way Jake Paul doesn't get this thing, and he might actually get a chance to knock Mike Tyson down a few times because Tyson is, like almost 60 years old. However, the Vegas money is on Mike Tyson because the YouTubers don't go to Vegas to bet. The old guys do, and the old guys want to see Mike Tyson beat the hell out of somebody. We'll see how this all plays out about 2-3 weeks. Let's stick with money and stick with sports for a quick minute. This is Angel Reese. If you're watching the video, you see a picture of Angel Reese in her gear for the Chicago Sky. She came into the news this week because of a statement she gave on her money, her actual salary from the WNBA. Her salary is $73,439, $74,000, which she says doesn't cover expenses. The headline came with this: Angel Reese, quote, living beyond my means, unquote, as WNBA salary won't cover rent. Her salary, I told you, $73,439. She pays about $8,000 per rent. She lives, I said New York last week when I was doing the thing, but obviously she doesn't live in New York. She lives in Chicago. it costs a lot of money to live in Chicago, to live as she does and needs to, because you can't just go get a cheap apartment someplace. She's got to deal with something that has security, something that's easy to get around to. She's got to do what she needs to do. She was being humorous when she says she's living beyond her means because she is being taken care of as best as possible. But her salary does show a definite disparity between the rookies of the WNBA and the rookies of the NBA. Bronny James gets a couple $1,000,000 and he probably won't play very much. He probably won't be a key to the team. And he's on a team, let's be honest, because his dad, who gets paid a lot of money, is key and is the guy that brings people into the butts in the seats for the NBA, is on that team. Angel Reese is the moneymaker for the Chicago Sky. There's other folks. She's the person that makes the Sky run. She was helping them make a very historic run this year. Didn't quite make it as far. And because she got hurt at the end of the year, it sort of ended the momentum that they had. However, as a rookie with big impact, she has financial struggles. Not the same ones you and I may have, but because it's pay scales for the WNBA and how they make money, i.e. going to Russia to play overseas because they need extra cash, it's a big deal. We will see how more leagues are going to do better to take care of women. And we'll have a story that I know we'll talk about next week because it's already in the queue for from last night. And the numbers are very heavy on the disparity. How much money the WNBA lost this year alone, because it's been losing money the whole time. It's been backed up by the NBA. But this year, with all the hype and all the eyeballs on the game, how much money the WNBA actually lost and will mean to the viability of a female league. People are now watching it, but people aren't paying, or let's be specific, the sponsors aren't paying what they're paying the men to play. Final story for this week, and this one also has a resolution that has been done. James Blunt will legally change his name to Blunty McBluntface if his new release tops the chart. Now, Blunt made a humorous pledge to change his name with a challenge to y'all in the internet's world, in the buying world of UK. His new album was released last week, and if it topped the pop charts in UK, he would change his name to Blunty McBluntface. Now, we may find out that this was all a joke. It was never meant to be anything at all, but we do know he's not going to change his name because guess what? Charlie XCX's remix of Brat beat out the re-release of Mr. Blunty McBluntface's album. So no, there will be no name change, nothing going on. It just can't happen. The numbers didn't make that out there. Now, another article recently talking about James Blunt saying, not that he was doing this because he was trying to get people to get money. He looks at his royalties for his first big hit, Beautiful, and says, I think I'm going to be okay. I don't think I have to worry about anything. I think I will manage regardless. He did want to get some publicity and some numbers for this new album, release album, and it didn't quite happen. The publicity, yes. Some new numbers, maybe. Charlie XCX blew him out of the water for this week in any actual sale. So my dream of Mr. Blunty McBluntface coming on tour to open for Oasis, at least that part's done. But Oasis, that concert's not happening. So we're gonna keep that chestnut alive. Also keeping us alive are our sponsors. And you can go to our website. This is theconversationproject.com/sponsors and visit more sponsors and help us along the way with things we have done. All of our sponsors are affiliates. So if you buy from them, we get a small commission back. It's that simple. And you pay nothing extra for the affiliates. So check out the sponsors at our website, more of them, to see if there's a sponsor that is better for taking care of you. This one right here takes care of us, and we want them to take care of you as well. You as news nerds want to get the best news possible, or the best news coverage possible, or as much coverage possible as you can get, and understand who's saying what and what's actually real, what's biased, what's one-sided, and what just sort of is out there. Ground News can help you see the bigger picture with that one. Uncover where your news is coming from and compare it from how different media outlets are reporting the same story and get an unbiased perspective of everything. It could be local stories, it can be national stories or global news. Ground News will allow you to diversify your sources and get the missing headlines that you don't see and the missing parts of stories that other outlets are overlooking. And their blind spot feature is the key to all this. You will love that part. Blind Spot shows you what stories are being covered by certain political leanings, whether all by the right or all by the left. So if you follow either an all right or all left sort of understanding or sources for news, you'll notice some things you've not heard of because ground news will give that give that to you. So if you're looking for more news, more nuance, and less opinion, or just to understand where the opinions are coming from, ground news can give that. Easy to read layouts of side-by-side comparisons of who's covering what is by ground news. So cut through all the noise and see where the focus is on where the facts is. Go to our website, use our link to download ground news today, and you can get all this great coverage for less than $10 a month. This is a conversationproject.com/ground news. This is a conversationproject.com/ground news. As I said, this is an affiliate link like all of our sponsors. So if you use this link, you will pay what you're going to pay, and we get a small commission from your payment. Nothing extra goes into the fee. We open the door for you, and they give us a fee, a bit of the fee for bringing you in the door. But we're bringing you in the door for something that's awesome. Beyond the headlines, beyond the bias, it is Ground News, our sponsor for this program. We also want to take a time to wrap up the time and talk about the Conversation Project. Our online home, our website, this is theconversationproject.com, where you can find all you need to know about us. We'll go into the bits and pieces as we wrap things up, but the big thing is find our website, find replays and the archive of the things we do every single day here for the Conversation Project. We produce 5 days a week, a morning show, because it's in the morning, but it can be when you want to watch it, of news headlines from the previous day for Monday's previous weekend that you deem as conversational. You tell us what stories get into the queue to talk about. We'll explain. I say we'll explain a lot because a lot of explaining. We'll explain that in just a bit going forward. So we do that. You can see replays of that. We also have something called Things You Might Ought to Know. Fun stuff, birthdays and history lessons and things to celebrate that as well. Plus clips, short clips and hot takes and things like that on various platforms. Find out where we are, all the links to all the places you can find us in video and audio in written places. Find out things we've done in the past and go through our origin story. Find out how we got to be, and some of the travails and sometimes travesties that's got us here. Find it all at our website. This is conversationproject.com. You can also go to that page, visit our sponsorship links, and visit our partnership page as well. We want to thank our partners every single weekend for helping us continue things on. Going to our sponsors and buying from them, getting something from them, which is a affiliate link, helps things out. But these partners, these are people who directly fund us through its subscriptions. Go to the partners page or go to buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne, same place, and consider the partnership realm. We have various levels. The $5 level that we have here is Cup of Coffee level. Harold Braxton, Kobe Green, and Eldon Kidd. That's $5 a month from them. And just $1 a month from Joy Winters and Spare Change is allowing us to get some things done around here. The more we can get from you as direct partners, the more things we can do for the Conversation Project. The more things we get from you as sponsors, the more we can get as the Conversation Project. These are the only ways to help us out, but these are ways that directly fund the resource part of what are doing our mission. So consider being a partner, consider our sponsors, consider those things going forward. If you don't want to or have the means to consider that, these are the important issues to remember. Our website, as I said, this is theconversationproject.com. Our email address, theconversationinbox@gmail.com. We need you to stop by our website, check out things that you may have missed, and go back into the archives and learn some things, and email us whenever the notion comes to you on a complaint, on a concern, on a question, on some story ideas that we don't think we're covering well enough. Conversationinbox@gmail.com. The feeds. The feeds are our links on Facebook and X and Threads. Threads is threads.net/@thisistheconversation, facebook.com/thisistheconversationproject, and x.com/th_conversation. What we do at those places is to present for you every 50 minutes just about a news article from various different places, different sources, different headline folks, different bents on how things are gone. Sometimes I'll take a conservative headline and put it with the liberal article just to mix things up. Sometimes I change it up going there. And we give you a chance to engage in the stories to tell us how these stories should work. You tell us what stories we cover. The 12 stories we had this week were all told by you for us to tell you about them or talk more about them in the daily show we have called Things You Might Not Have Heard. all day. We do these stories, and in the mornings, we pull them up, we sort them out, we see which stories are at the tops. For Monday's show, we'll give you 10 stories from the top 30 stories of the weekend, over 90 stories in that span of time. For Tuesday through Friday, we'll give you 8 stories in that iteration. We get about 30 stories in a day. So we'll take the top half, 15 or so stories, and pull from them. And then we let you tell us if those stories are right or wrong. And of course, you keep telling us for the next day what stories that we should probably cover. It's that simple. This is conversational. This is not a pure monologue. This is really all sort of interactivity with you. And you can comment with us via email or via the videos anytime you want to. Let us know just how well or unwell we are doing. That is what we ask. We also ask, come back next week. Stick around with us. Do what you can to be a part of the conversation and what stories made the biggest impact, more or less for me. The stories that stood out for me for the Conversation Project in the weekly roundup. For this, I literally go through all 5 days worth of news and just look at the links and see which ones are sort of ones that jump out, especially if we have stories that basically progress. For this political season, we usually have 2 or 3 stories every single day that we could cover that are dealing with the election or Kamala Harris and Donald Trump specifically. We had a lot of those this week. We went with just the Al Smith dinner so we can go with just one story because there was plenty of stuff. Kamala doing her interviews, Trump doing or not doing interviews, things like that going forward. We didn't hit all the big things. We didn't update this week anything major in the weather stuff happening with Helene or Milton because those things are essentially where they are. They just didn't happen. Those things didn't seem to be conversational for what's going on, although there are big news to cover, which there. The issue with the killing of the Hamas leader, that turned big very quickly, so we took it. Liam Payne, that turned big very quickly, so we took it. And that's what we have. We thank our sponsor, Ground News, for being with us. Go to our website. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news and engage with Ground News for less than $10 a month. They can give you great coverage just like we do, although they are going to be essentially telling you what the stories are and who's covering it. We give you some nuanced, we think it's nuanced, conversational insight and some commentary that hopefully you can engage in with this. The whole point is to keep the conversation going. So we don't say things as a flat out, you're wrong, stop talking. I give you the news fact or parts of facts. I give you my opinion of how people are seeing, how I'm seeing it, and how other people are seeing and weighing back and forth. I'm looking for your opinion. Comment in the comments on YouTube. There really are some nasty ones, but be as best you can. And email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being a part of the family, part of the show, giving us something to do because we can't do this without you. Join us on Monday for the next edition of Things You Might Not Have Heard. It's for this news articles for the weekend that got the most engagement. I'm telling you, we're definitely talking about the WNBA and the pay gaps happening there. And join us all week long for those shows. And next week, find out what big stories from the week survive the week, as I see it, the biggest things to talk about. Thank you so much. We're going to do this again, this one specifically, next Saturday.